Hello, and today, like I discussed before, we're gonna see how you can set up your virtual environment from scratch. And we're gonna see in these videos to set up the full dev environment using Linux and Windows Server 2019. I'll show you the first Linux, and then we'll switch on in another video to set up the Windows environment. Just bear in mind a couple of things like for somehow we can use the cloud environment as well, and in future I'm going to discuss the clouds as well, because most of the cloud provider like Windows or Microsoft and AWS, they are offering free instances that you can use to do your work, and they are free of charge. All you need to start up and shut down once you start your work and once you finish, right? But obviously sometimes it's convenient if you have some machine on your own host computer, and you spin up when you need and you close it. And sometimes we have some particular project which we are working on, we prefer to keep it on our own machines instead of the cloud. So then this video will be very helpful, and we will use a Linux machine for all our future machine learning lessons, and as well as the SQL Server 2019. And I'll show you how you can leverage the machine learning on SQL Server without using Python, because our machine learning is going to be, I would say, bit separate, not completely from typical machine learning lesson, because that's more like uh, looking at the data aspect of the machine learning. So just keep in mind that's also will come up, and we'll use Windows machines as well for once we work on the machine learning exercises. So now let's start with the very first step. So like I mentioned, in this project we are using Oracle VirtualBox, and like I mentioned, I think in one of another video, that you can go to VirtualBox and you can download it. It always show you the latest release, and once you click, it will download on your machine, and then all you need to just install it by clicking on the default option. Like I have already installed, so I'm not gonna do that because there is no point for me. Yeah, but if we have, for example, we can check if the latest release is 6.122. Sometimes it shows you that there's an update available and you can download it. So that time it also download the installer on your machine, and you can use to upgrade your VirtualBox. So the second thing we need, so we have already have the software on this machine. We'll first go to the Linux, and obviously my favorite is Ubuntu, because Ubuntu provide really an enriched dev environment for do any kind of work. And we will see in future, once we do not only the Python Anaconda suite, we will also look at the Visual Code as well as some C programming, which will help us to build the algorithm if we want to do using Ubuntu. And keep in mind, Ubuntu or all Linux operating system, they were written in C. So if you are familiar with C, you will feel a really good control on the Linux operating system. Like you can go and you can look really deep that what's happening under the hood. But if you don't have any knowledge of C, that's all right. We're gonna look at some, I would say, touch points, and if that makes the interest to you, you can put in the comments. I'm more than happy to put some additional C tutorial. C is still, I would say, the most powerful language, because most of the advanced application like Oracle, Unix, they are all written in C, or I would say they have now enhanced it using C++, but C is really worth to look at if you have any interest. So I'm going to go in here and Ubuntu. Let me see. We are in here. Click on Ubuntu, and then you can data science workstation, like I mentioned, because it's all about machine learning, AI, and data sciences. So, and that's one of the reason for using Ubuntu, that most of the packages are already now available on Ubuntu operating system, so you can use them out of the box as well. We will see further. So let me see if where I so if we go to the download, sorry, it's in here. We are going to use Ubuntu desktop. I leave the Ubuntu server for future video, and obviously IoT, Internet of Things, Ubuntu also work for them, and it's just really worth to look into IoT as well, especially once you start working with the data, and then you start looking at the big data side, where the machines are generating heaps and heaps of data, and you are getting that data. But as usual, again, a separate topic. So if you click it in here, so 20.14 is 3.04. It automatically download, but I have already downloaded it, so I'm gonna cancel it out, and then I'll come back. So you can see it will ask you to contribute. If you want, you can go ahead and contribute, but if you don't want, the download start automatically. So you can it will download it on your machine, and then once it's finished, you're gonna see an ISO file on if you're running Windows, you're gonna see ISO file, and if you're Mac, there's gonna be an other, I would say, option to mount the ISO file. But I think on most of the operating system, I'm not sure about Linux, but most of the Mac and Windows now providing by default the option to mount ISO file, but we are not going to mount it. What we are going to do, we are now going to spin up a new virtual machine. So let's click on it, and I'm going to give it a name. I have my own convention. I'm based in Sydney, so I always use CBD. Sorry, SID CBD. It's Linux, so I'm gonna actually LNX and UX01. So you can see as soon as I put LNX, so the Oracle Software Smart, it already identified. I'm going to set up the Linux operating system. It's already selected, and you can see almost all Linux flavor are available, or most popular flavors are available. And I'm going to install 64-bit, so I'm going to select the 64-bit. But if you select any other option and you'll still start, that should be all right. It's not going to complain anything. So I'm going to set up on C slash VMs. I'm going to set it up in here. And I'll click on the expert mode just to show you additional options. One of the I would say bug is you have to retype, because it has override your inputs. So again, going in here. VM. Going to give it a name, set CBD. X01. Again, I'm going to select 64. I have 32 gig on my machines, which is quite handy. So I'm gonna to speed up the installation 8192. But I think if you allocate 4098 MB, which is close to 4 gig, and you can convert it. The formula I'm going to put in the description to calculate the MBs, or to convert the MBs into gigs. You can do it, but also there's a nice slider. You can actually drag the slider, and it will show you how much memory it's going to allocate. And I'm going to create the new disk for it. I'll keep the name as it is. I'm not going to change the name. Just make sure the location is in the same folder where you have placed your virtual machine. 10 gig is very small, so I'm going to put 100 gig. You can see it will store up to 2 terabytes. But what I'm going to do, instead of fixed size, I'm going to select on the dynamically allocated, because that will help the virtual machine to get the space when it's needed, and it won't block your storage unnecessarily, right? But you can see, if you have big requirements like 500-600 gig, and you find out it's a bit difficult to run or your guest which on your host machine or physical machine, then obviously cloud is the best option. So I'll come to that part as well. And now we will create VDI is the default VirtualBox disk image. Excellent. So you can see a new virtual machine has been added into my interface with some default option. So I can see some basic, like it is selecting, it is showing me Linux, and it's going to install Ubuntu 64. Now on the system side, I can see 8192, but one thing, I'm not going to go through these options. You can change these options if you want to, because we want to be very specific to the David environment. One more thing, to speed up the process, because it VirtualBox by default allocate one CPU, but if you want, you can allocate more. Like I'm going to allocate 3, because that will definitely help in installation, speed up the things. Display is fine. We are not going to change anything. Storage, and then storage is the most important. We allocate the storage, but we haven't allocated the source where it's going to get the binary files to install Ubuntu. So I'm gonna click on this little black down triangle next to the icon, and you can see it's showing me create a virtual disk or choose a disk file, or it's also showing me my CD drive or DVD drive, which I can mount if I have the physical DVD. But I'm gonna choose the disk file, which I've already showed you previously, and it's sitting in here. I have actually downloaded it yesterday, so I'm gonna select this one, and you can see now this one is in it's showing me, it's showing me in here that it has bound it. Some information about the disk. Audio is there. I'm not going to change. I'm going to use the net, because we are not going to set up a separate network for it. We're just going to use it as a dev kind of environment with single dev machine. So I'm not going to set up an additional network, but that we can do if we want to. And maybe in some future video where we have to build, I would say, more than one machine dev environment, we will use the network options and set up our own network within the virtual box environment, and we can connect our virtual machines to that virtual network. But that's a separate topic. We are not going to discuss it. One more thing I normally do, I use to bound the share folder, because that will help me to I would say communicate between my host machine to the guest machine for copying file or for sharing data. So obviously I'm going to select the folder path. It's going to be C work, and I'm going to select that. Auto mount, I'm going to paste some data, so I'm not going to make a read only, and you can give it a name as a mount point, and it will show you some description, but I'm gonna leave it blank, and that's it. Click on OK, and now we can start it. For somehow on this machine I'm facing some problem in normal start, so I'm gonna first do the headless start. in that one, it won't spin up the machine straight away. It started and you can see the progress in the preview window. However, once it's showing you the screen in here, you're gonna see the virtual machine. So good thing we can see the virtual machine, but now it's showing us select a startup days. So we're gonna select our operating system and we're gonna start it. It's already in here. Okay, so we can cancel it. So with whenever you go and you download the Linux, it will show you some additional features, like in some installer, it won't check the disk system, but in this one, which I downloaded yesterday, they have now the option that it's gonna run the check disk utility, which is checking your disk first before it spin up the GUI interface. You can cancel it, but I'll let it run. It's always useful that the installer can check the and it is not checking your physical drive, it is checking your virtual drive. So I paused the video to avoid any delay. So the check has been completed successfully. Now the installer is going to show us some additional options. So you can see that there's a typical installer screen. It's gonna show me the first screen, hopefully, where it's gonna ask me to install or to try. I'm gonna install it. I can choose the language, the default language, and you can see a lot of languages are now available because community is providing a lot of input to Ubuntu. So which is really great thing from the Linux perspective. Like there are many people, if you face any problem, there are always some I would say community portal or I would say uh, Stack Overflow or Ask Ubuntu forum, where you can go and you can put your question, or you can even find the question already answered in there. So that's one of the reason to select Ubuntu. So I'm going to install it, and obviously we're going to use English keyboard. If you want, you can change it. I'm not going to change in here. What apps? Normal installation, I'm not going to. So even if I want, I can just go with the minimal installation, because for somehow I find it weird. I don't need these games and media players and all. Most of the utilities, we need some I would say a clean basic uh, Ubuntu machine, which we can use to configure based on our requirement, but I'll leave it as it is in there. If you want, you can go with the minimal. It will only install the web browser and basic utility. But sometimes I've seen it will take your time to configure additional things at the later stage. So that's why I prefer to install normal installation, and then we can clean the machine if you want to. We'll look at the updates. Obviously, we have to make sure the OS is updated. So we'll check this option. Otherwise, there will be a message every time you spin up the virtual machine, which is kind of annoying. So it continue. For somehow my host machine is a bit slow. Okay, So it's now giving you the warning that it's going to erase disk and install Ubuntu. Make sure you understand this option. It's not going to erase the data from your host drive. It's going to erase the data from the virtual drive that you have created at the start of setting up the virtual machine. So don't worry about this option. Just make sure it is. And if you want, you can check the advanced feature. The options are, because I'm on Windows, but the options it's showing me related to Ubuntu. So it's not like, touching your actual host operating system or host disk. It's only gonna touch the virtual disk. So I'm gonna click on install. I'm comfortable if it can. So it's now you can even see that it's gonna show us the partition table. That's typical Linux topic, that what kind of drives we have, and these are all related to the default disk configuration for Linux, and we are pretty comfortable in using that, so no issue with that. I'm gonna click on continue. Yeah, I'm based in Sydney. It detects automatically, so I'm gonna click, and now here I'm going to give. So normally we use the admin account, and I'm giving it same name that I gave at the start, NXUX01. So my name is correct. I'm going to put a password. You can put any password you want, but make sure you have the strong password convention as a habit. Otherwise, it's if it is easily guessable, it's not a good security practice, especially once you go and you deploy thing in production. If you want, you can select this one, but because we are creating our own personal dev environment, so I'm going to select on this. The only thing, I don't need to type the password again and again. Click continue, and then it will start the installation process. And you can see it's already halfway through. I'm going to stop in the recording in here, and then we'll continue once it's finished, and I'll have the screen open with the Linux user interface. Okay, so the Linux has been installed, and once it's complete, it's going to show you the installation complete, and it will ask you to restart. So I'm going to restart the virtual machine as a part to complete the process. And you can see it's showing us the message there, please remove the installation media and press enter. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to device optical. The very first option is going to show you all the images or the media. So what you can do, you can either change to host drive or any other thing, because I can't see that I'm unable to do it. But let me select this one and press enter. Yeah, you can see my machine was heavily used because I have many other things running at the same time. So apology for that, but hopefully it won't take much time now to spin up the Ubuntu. Now you can see all the initial checks have been made, and now we can see it is now loading the Ubuntu operating system. Still doing the initial configurations. Now you can see the cursor icon has been changed. That's an indication that the machine. Next time I'll try to close some of the processes which are running uh, on my host machine, just to make sure that it won't impact. So you can see as soon as it has been loaded, it's gonna show us the main window with the messages that like we can. So these are all marketing stuff, like you can set up your Google account. We don't need it, so we are all good. We are not going to. Yes, we can send some canonical information back to Ubuntu, so they can improve their operating system if they want to. And by the way, it's a dev system, so I'm not concerned about the security and the privacy of data, because a lot of data we're going to use is already a dev kind of data, or data sets which are publicly available, so we are not concerned. But normally in the production environment, we normally don't do it. We are either given this machine by our infrastructure teams, or we normally use cloud, which are already following the security practice defined by the infrastructure, or the IT compliance department. So you don't need to worry about. So I can safely click next. Yeah, I'm not going to open my location service at this stage. Done. And you can see there are many. You can use this software. Yeah, like you can see, we have many options available by default. So you'll see which one we're gonna use as part of it. And now you can see Visual Studio Code is available by default. Like you can, it's coming as an option, not by default, means it is installed by default. PyCharm, another IDE for the dev, very famous, and Git Kraken, which is a GUI for Git. So we will see these options once, and even now Microsoft has released its team. You can see Zoom client. So many useful utilities are already available, and we're gonna work with some of them. So these are just more like, again, a marketing stuff to us by Ubuntu guys. So thanks for that. I'm gonna click on done. And that's what I was telling you during the installation process, that if you want to install the Ubuntu updates, it will show a dialog box which gonna actually ask you to install the updates. And I'm gonna say remind me later, not at this stage. One thing you have noticed, that the Windows resolution of the guest operating system is not optimal. Like I cannot expand, even I try, it's not going to adjust automatically, and we'll see. But first, as a first step, I'm going to now remove. I'm going to do some cleanup. That's my personal uh, options, that I prefer to keep this area clean, because you will see later on why I would normally do it. I want to bring some additional. I'll keep the Ubuntu software store at the moment. So, and even later on, if I need, I will remove it. So I'm going to look at what applications are installed. So I'll leave these applications for time being. And that's pretty much it. In the next video, we will see how we can configure the Ubuntu, and also fix that resolution issue. So I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. If you like, please subscribe the channel for more videos, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.